Have you ever wondered what a student's day is really like? Yeah, not the highlight reel you see online, but the full, unedited version. We're going to break down the anatomy of a student's day, from that very first alarm all the way to the final page turn.
Okay, let's just start with a number. 17. What's that? Well, that's the average number of hours a student is on the clock every single day. I mean, from the moment they wake up to when they finally cross off that last task. Seriously, just let that sink in. And this timeline gives you a sense of how that day is structured. It kicks off at sunrise and pushes way, way past midnight. You see the usual stuff, right? The wake-up call, the morning classes, but I want you to notice that midday pivot. That's that crucial moment of shifting from just schoolwork to all the other responsibilities. And that's before the second shift of evening work even begins. It's a total marathon.
All right, so let's start at the beginning, the morning rush. And this is so much more than just grabbing some coffee and running out the door. It's actually a super important time for mental preparation to get ready for the packed day ahead. It all starts right here, 6 a.m. That first alarm goes off and bam, you've already got a critical decision to make. Is today a snooze button day, trying to steal a few extra minutes of rest? Or is it a conquer the world day where you just jump out of bed and get a head start? This one choice can set the tone for the next 17 hours.
And this quote just captures that mindset perfectly. Before my feet hit the floor, I'm already running through my to-do list for the day. Wow. There's no gently easing into the morning here. The brain is already firing on all cylinders, calculating deadlines, planning study sessions, and juggling commitments. And all that mental prep builds right into the core of the day, the academic grind. We all think we know what this is. Lectures, labs, the library, but it's about so much more than just showing up. It is a mental gauntlet, for real. It's not just about today's assignment, it's always about what's coming up next. You can think of it as the midterm marathon. There's this constant low-level hum of anxiety because the pressure of the next big exam is always looming. This focus on the future means every single lecture is just one piece of a much bigger, high-stakes puzzle. So how do they even manage it? Well, it's not about just passively listening in class anymore. Success today takes a proactive strategy. You've got to review notes, team up with a study group, actually work through practice problems, and even make time to see the professor. It's basically a full-on campaign for every single credit. And just look at this breakdown. This is so important. On an average day, a student might spend 4 hours actually sitting in a class, but then they'll spend a full 6 hours on homework and studying related to those classes. The real work, the heavy lifting, almost always happens outside the classroom.
But what about all those gaps in the schedule? Those hours between lectures and study sessions? Well, that brings us to our next section, life between classes. Because the hustle does not stop when the professor dismisses the class.
There's this huge gap between the expectation and the reality of student life. The classic image is all about, chill coffee dates and tons of social events. But the reality for so many students, it's a constant juggling act between a part-time job, club meetings, and just trying to run basic errands.
And this chart really drives that point home. I mean, look at how so-called free time is actually spent. A massive 40% of it goes to a part-time job. Another 25% goes to extracurriculars. Meals and errands eat up another 20%. And that leaves this tiny sliver, 15%, for actual unstructured socializing. The key here is that free time isn't really free at all.
Which brings us to the evening. For a lot of people, this is when you get to wind down. But for a student, it's the start of the evening shift. It's almost like the day resets itself, kicking off a whole second period of intense work.
The day doesn't end just because the sun goes down. As this slide puts it so well, the library lights are the new moonlight. The focus just shifts indoors, and your whole world kind of shrinks down to the fluorescent glow of a study hall or just a single desk lamp.
And this second wind is a full-on sprint. It's just as structured as the morning was. You might kick it off with a group project, then pivot to some heavy reading, then you've got to finalize that lab report. And at midnight, you're not done. That's when you start prepping for the next day. The cycle is just absolutely relentless.
So we come all the way back to that number from the beginning. 17. After a day this long, this densely packed with academic, professional, and personal commitments, you have to ask yourself, where is the time to truly rest and recharge? It's the question that just hangs over this entire schedule. So, when you follow this schedule for a day, what does it actually reveal? Well, it's about so much more than just a series of time slots on a calendar. It's really a portrait of modern student life.
So, what does this day really tell us? There are a few key takeaways. First, time management has gone from being a good habit to being a fundamental survival skill. Second, that line between being a student and being a worker is pretty much dissolving. It turns the student experience into a full time, often overtime job. And that creates the ultimate challenge balancing all that work with your own personal well being. It's a high wire act with no safety net. And finally, while the day is filled with sprints, every single day is a marathon that you have to run at a sprinter's pace.
And that leaves us with one final, and I think crucial question. When you look at this intense, demanding routine, is it creating a generation of incredibly resilient, capable people? Or is this relentless pace just paving a direct road to burnout? It's the central tension of the modern student experience, and it's definitely something worth thinking about.